challenging yourself and like finishing something that's that hard is meaningful. Always will be, I guess. And I was like, oh my God. If I don't know how to do that. There was times where it's like, okay, this is a big race and I can win it and I need to win it. And like, I've got a mortgage. 45 is like not big enough. And if you don't have clearance for 50s, nobody wants your bike anymore.
Real world epics, training, racing, and figuring out how to balance it all with life's demands. This is Low Angle Adventures. Carl Decker, welcome to Low Angle Adventures.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, for those of you that don't know, Carl is the current, make sure I get this right, manager of the Giant Gravel Collective and formerly a factory off-road team member for 20 years. Is that right?
That's right.
I've got to use my cheat sheet here. Otherwise, I won't get your bio quite right. Carl also happens to be one of my best friends. We see each other, what do you say, 3-4 times a year? Yeah. We live 250 miles apart.
315, I just drove here.
So, okay, yeah. It's a 5-hour drive.
Yeah.
Faster in your car. So, for those who don't know, Carl is a 5-time Downieville All-Mountain World Champion, 2010 to 2014. That's a big one.
Yeah, that goes to the top of the list for me. I'm pretty proud of that.
3-time Lost Sierra Triple Crown champion.
Yes, that also was a good time.
7-time U.S. rider at the UCI Mountain Bike World Championships.
Yeah.
That's true. a lot of travel in the world.
Yep, a lot of Stars and Stripes jerseys.
2019 Oregon Trail Gravel Grinder overall champion. And 2005, back when you were just a young pup, 2005 U.S. Elite National Road Champion.
Yep.
Another Stars and Stripes jersey.
Yeah, that's that one you get for winning instead of for starting. But yeah, same deal, kind of.
Also on the list is Super D National Series winner, although that seems to get confused with the Super D National Championship.
Nobody is claimed to have won the Super D National Championships more than I have been claimed to do that, but not by me. I have never won the Super D National Championship. Adam Craig would always win that, and I'd win at pretty much everything else, kind of. So I won the series. And it wasn't based on the series. It was based on a one-day thing. And Adam always had my number for just one day a year at Super Ds. I was real good at figuring him out for the rest of them.
Okay. Let's talk about gravel. Tell me a little bit. Give me your perspective on the current series. And you've got a lot of riders in there that are competing at the highest level. And mixing it up, I mean, I guess there's a mountain bike race or two in there that could be considered a real mountain bike race, maybe?
Kind of, yeah. So the Lifetime Grand Prix is the series you speak of. It's 7 races, and it's all in the U.S., and it's kind of the peak of gravel racing, despite it being kind of endurance racing with some mountain biking mixed in. And yeah, you're right. The mountain biking that's in there isn't like the mountain biking that you and I are, so in love with. It's more tactical. It's like that, so that it's easier for a road racer or a triathlete or somebody from the Midwest that's new to bikes can still do all of these events. Lifetime is a gym conglomerate. Right. They own these races, and part of being a gym member, it gets you early entry window into some of these events. It's not built for the pros necessarily, but the pros, it is the biggest game in town for the pros, and it does bring, and that feeds the other part of it. It makes an excitement that makes people want to spend, like you were saying, $300 to do some godforsaken death march of a bike race. So it's a weird place, but it's a thriving place, and we're in our 3rd year of the Grand Prix this year. Giant and Liv have 5 athletes, international riders. I have 2 Australians, a Canadian, and 2 Americans kind of under my wing, and I'm racing a little bit with them, less and less as I become more and more aged and decrepit. And it's the biggest game in town. Like, it's globally important, and we're fortunate to have it in the U.S. because these races are, gravel started by and large in the U.S., or the current gravel movement, if you will, because we have so much open space, and the roads are getting scary with inattentive drivers and texting and all that stuff, and just a burgeoning population, honestly. So a bike like this, you can get out and get on the road less traveled and see so much terrain and go so damn far in a day by yourself. But with others, and especially in a racing scenario, you're covering so much terrain and seeing so much so quickly. There's nothing really like that. Road racing, sure, a road race, you're generally on a road that you can drive in your car, and your whole team might go and pre-drive the thing the day before the race. Gravel racing, like Unbound, which is one of the GP races, it's 205 miles. You race a bike just like this. Mm-hmm. And it's 205 miles, and the leaders of that pro race are doing that faster than you would drive it in your rental car. Like, they're averaging 20 miles an hour or more.
Yeah.
It's crazy how much terrain you can cover, and that's neat. Like, it's addictive to do that with human power and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and Coca-Cola, and just go across half a state in a day.
Sure.
It's just wild, and like places that there are no people and that other people don't get to experience the way that you do. Like, that's pretty special. So it is miserable at times. And being isolated in the wind, on soft surfaces, like even the strongest racers hate that.
Yeah.
But it really does have kind of some of the best elements of road racing, the tactics and stuff, mixed with kind of the return to nature that mountain biking used to have before it got so kind of urbanized.
Talk to me a little bit about how the grand scale of gravel and those distances have changed mountain bike racers. Guys who made their career early on in mountain bike racing are now world tour level riders competing in gravel. And I mean, I'll give you an example. What I saw in 2023 at Downieville with Cole riding, it was Thursday before the race. Cole goes out for a 37 or 40 mile ride. Race is Saturday. 37 or 40 mile ride with 7,000 feet of climbing in it. And I'm pretty confident Keegan did the same thing at Downieville this year on Thursday. That wasn't the case.
No.
To be the best mountain biker in the country.
No.
15 years ago.
No. And the problem is it doesn't pay. If you can go to the Olympics, you can make a fine living as a mountain biker. But being the 10th best mountain biker that only does mountain bike races in the U.S., nobody cares right now. The sales of mountain bikes are down, and sponsorship money comes directly based off of sales for a lot of this stuff. The endemic stuff that it does anyway. Gravel's where it's at. People are buying the bikes. There's just tremendous growth and like development of the bikes. Everybody's revising their stuff, and it's just a quickly changing segment. And there's just a lot of eyes on it, and it's easy to sell that to sponsors. Mountain biking is just kind of static. And even like enduro, which is kind of the hip new mountain bike type of thing from 10 years ago, that's faltering to some degree. It's tough. The bikes haven't changed as much as gravel bikes, so people aren't trying to push out new stuff as much, and it's just not as healthy as it once was. This stuff's all cyclical, I've seen booms and busts in mountain biking a couple times in my lifetime.
Sure.
Same with road. Gravel's kind of a new thing, but the hot take is that gravel is just mountain biking on more boring courses, basically.
That's been my take.
It's which is more approachable to a lot of people,
Yeah, sure.
Like most of the people that do Unbound, there's 3,000 or 4,000 people that show up to that, and most of those people wouldn't be out of place doing Downieville.
Yeah, sure.
There's just a barrier to entry for Downieville that's just too much for a normal person that's not expert.
Yeah.
And I like to say, you only have to have the will. You don't have to have a skill. You just have to have a will to do these
Gravel.
long, weird things.
Yeah.
And, if you're a working stiff, it's a monument. And like to come back from your long weekend and say, tell your coworkers, I raced 200 miles or 100 miles or whatever, it's impressive.
And that's not to be diminished.
No,
it's
badass.
Wherever you are in the spectrum.
It's crazy that an average person can go do this stuff. The bikes are amazing, nutrition and clothing, all this stuff has come up to where it's like attainable for a cubicle worker guy that, quit smoking 3 years ago to be like, you know what? I've lost 50 pounds. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm going to do Unbound next year or any number of these other Leadville monument things.
Sure.
Get a belt buckle or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean anything, but challenging yourself and finishing something that's that hard is meaningful. Always will be, I guess.
What's your take on Leadville? This year the drop bars were the thing and it didn't happen.
It didn't happen. Keegan, whatever Keegan's on is the right thing, probably, because Keegan is just at the top of his game,
Sure.
and it's really hard to find fault with him. Drop bars, if you're Keegan, make a ton of sense, because Keegan's going to be by himself for at least half of the race, because he's going to go up the Columbine climb by himself and have to get back by himself. Mm-hmm. If you're in a group of 7 people,
doesn't matter. Yeah.
You might want the flat bars so that you can just sit in the draft and run over stuff and not have to worry about your hand coming off or whatever. Mm-hmm. I think people that are like, oh, that's a secret weapon. It's like, yeah, only if you're by yourself. And there's only 2 ways to be by yourself. Off the front or off the back.
I'm good at the latter.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think that until there's a watershed moment where everybody starts doing that, and then the draft gets faster maybe or something, and then you don't have an advantage on the descents because you're just going to ride away from the people you need to ride with. Mm-hmm. It just tactically doesn't make sense. Sure. Eventually, then maybe everybody's on that. Mm-hmm. If it's a time trial, if you're going to go out there and do Leadville by yourself, drop bars, 100%.
If it started today, would they call it a mountain bike race?
For sure. No, but Leadville is a mountain bike race, absolutely.
Because of the 1.5 miles of single track?
Well, I mean...
And the rough descending?
There's a lot of flats.
Yeah.
There's a lot of punctures. And go down that power line descent, that's... it's easy. I could ride down it on my cross bike, no problem. But not at the speeds that the front of that race is going.
For sure.
That's mountain biking. That's hauling ass on rough terrain and trying to manage your equipment. And a lot of people are coming up short. Now, what percentage of that race is mountain biking? Just enough to make it mountain biking. Mm-hmm. The rest of it's waiting for the mountain biking part for a lot of us. I only did that race once, and that was enough.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I did it, Not in the way that I'm glad that I raced rally cars because it was awesome, but because it's a
milestone.
It's a significant cultural event.
Yeah.
And
you need to mark it off if you're a mountain biker.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got to check that box.
Yeah, and I think a lot of these gravel races are kind of like that. And there's beauty in all of them, Each one of them, are miserable in some ways and pointless in others, but Unbound is undeniably beautiful in some ways. Just the terrain and the roads and the surfaces and the dynamics of the racing can be really cool. Is 204 miles too much of it? It is for me, but there's thousands of people that disagree with that.
It's a lot of rolling hills.
Yeah, and wind for you.
not my thing. That's a good opportunity to talk about what's behind us here. That's a pretty unique looking gravel bike. It might have the biggest tires on it that I've ever seen on a gravel bike.
Yeah, options are good. This is actually a prototype of the just freshly released new Revolt Giant's gravel bike. And it's very similar to the previous generation bike in terms of geometry because it was so perfectly balanced, I think, with the previous generation. I think that because those were all my numbers that I told them, and they just made it the way I wanted it, and everybody that I talked to seems to like it. No pressure. But the cockpit's all cleaned up. There's no cables exposed, so it's more aero, and then it's got a downtube storage thing, so you can stick a jacket or tools or whatever in there.
Toilet paper, like is in yours.
I have a toilet paper in there right now. Usually I keep a jacket in there just because it's just nice to have. A jacket doesn't rattle.
Yeah.
And you just never know when you're going to need a jacket, and it's a pain to have in your pocket.
Or a ski strap.
Ski strap also
super useful.
Yeah, you can put all sorts of stuff in there. So it's a revision. It's to an earlier bike, but it is it's a new frame, and it works like the old one, which is sweet because the old one works really well. And it's got a lot of clearance for tires, which
mountain bike tires on there, right?
This is a 225 tire.
Aspen STs, everyone. 225 Aspen STs. 170s front and back.
Yeah, the fast ones.
Yeah.
I raced a drop bar mountain bike when I was a teenager.
Okay.
So this is basically a better mountain bike than that mountain bike ever was. Mm-hmm. And it was for sure a mountain bike, and this is for sure not a mountain bike. Yeah. But this is a better mountain bike than that thing was in every way. Better gearing, better brakes, better ride compliance, everything. It's got a seat dropper, and this is a gravel bike. Things are crazy these days.
It's possible you're dating yourself
Yes.
a little bit.
Yeah, I am. It was a Bridgestone. It was me and Tomac. We were the only ones that were bold / dumb enough to ride a drop bar mountain bike back then. But yeah, the clearance thing is a big deal, and it's getting bigger. This year marked kind of a transition where everybody thought 45C tires were big until this year, and now it's 50s are the new 45s. 45 is not big enough, and if you don't have clearance for 50s, nobody wants your bike anymore, probably. 50, or they shouldn't. 50 wide.
Yeah, 50's still a little narrower than a 225 mountain bike tire.
Yeah, there's a 57.
Okay. Yeah, I guess it depends on the rim width, probably how wide you
yep.
end up.
But this is 57. I've got several hundred miles on this set of tires on there, and it hasn't rubbed at all. Okay. I also don't actively search for mud puddles to ride through.
I bet not. Because I noticed it's a few millimeters.
It's tight.
Yeah.
And Giant doesn't even recommend, it's clearance. It has clearance for 50s or 52s because they don't want to.
Yeah.
There's some kind of standard for how many fingers you can stick between your tire and your chainstay. And they stick to that, and they advertise it as that, but you can't put a bigger tire than this in there.
This is your personal preference for now.
Yeah, and I live in a place where it's sandy and rocky,
yeah.
And the roads, the gravel roads are crappy, and a lot of washboard and stuff, and this thing just eats it. You just can just mainline through all the inside lines that are full of chundery stuff that you wouldn't touch with a smaller tire. You just don't even look at it. You're just looking down the road and pedaling. It's pretty sweet.
Inserts?
Not on this. With the big tires, you have to run. I like my inserts to be on the ground a lot. Mm. So I like a little tire and a big insert.
Sure.
These are so big that you'd have to have a 300-gram insert in there to make it touch the ground.
I see.
It's that's just, I'm kind of weird like that. On gravel, I think inserts on gravel, specifically Cush Core, is just amazing on smaller tires. These bigger tires actually have less grip than a 40 with Cush Core with an aggressive tire pressure.
Okay.
But this is easy. It rolls fast on the pavement.
Is this the bike you rode when you were here in May? I don't think it's the tire setup, but that's really what's important here.
Yeah, I think it was.
It is the same bike, different tires. Do you remember what tire setup was on it then?
I don't.
Because we have some footage that I'll run with this.
Oh, yeah. I probably had 45s with like an XC Cushcore. I was running that for a while. Like some kind of Maxxis Rambler 45s with an XC Cushcore is a pretty sweet thing.
Yeah. Well, it was, I thought for sure that I was going to tear you up with my flat bar and the slow stuff, and you were right there. And then as soon as it got smoother and at all straight, you were out of sight in like 4 seconds.
Yeah.
Which is usually how it goes for me. But this was even more striking than I thought it might be.
Oh, on the descent. Yeah.
Yes.
I remember that first descent now.
So the first, it's a Adalpe summit going northeast, I guess.
I thought something had happened to you.
It did. I was alone.
Oh, and you weren't off the front.
I was alone above 20 miles an hour. That's what happened.
Yeah, that was a really great descent. That was fun.
Yeah, it starts off rough and with a couple switchbacks and a bunch of rain ruts across it.
Yep.
And then in 3 minutes, it smooths out and straightens out and still keeps going downhill for a lot of miles. And it's very fast.
The seat dropper is pretty cool on that stuff. It makes for a more complicated bike and a heavier bike, but
200 grams. Doesn't matter.
I didn't think that I would use it as much as I do, and I didn't realize. I almost always ride a seat dropper on a gravel bike these days. Part of it is I'm not trying to win races that are, super bike weight dependent or whatever. But man, I end up using it to like straighten my back out.
Just because you can stand up the
You
right
can
way?
just put your seat down and like go from this to this. And it's like, in a 5-hour ride, doing that makes a huge difference. Turns out, you descend without your bike, when you're going downhill and your bars are even further down and your seat's still up, like that's really hard on your neck and your shoulders, or mine, because I'm just a weak old man trying to be better about it. but it's, obviously it's great for descending like it is on a mountain bike. Not, you're not going off jumps, so that's not as big a deal. But I can corner faster with more confidence, and even more, I'm like just more comfortable. Like on paved descents, I drop it and I am comfortable, and I have more endurance because of it, I think.
I like the way the release is set up on the left side shifter. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, the fact that Shimano makes a dead lever without a return, it's only for droppers. It's pretty clean. Because I had like a secondary lever thing that was pretty weird before that, and this is pretty cool. The benefits of getting rid of a front chain ring.
There are many.
So many.
Yeah.
Yeah, one is all you need. One ring to rule them all.
Couldn't agree more, my friend. Let's talk a little bit about skiing. We're both avid skiers, backcountry skiers. Well, you might be a little bit more of a nose in the air powder hound than I am.
Yeah.
But that comes with living in Bend, I think, maybe.
I'm not of the notion, like pizza, even bad pizza is good.
Yeah.
Bad skiing scares the crap out of me.
Sure.
I'm just not powerful enough to just be like, oh yeah, breakable crust, whatever. I'll just ski it like powder and it'll be fine. Yeah, but you are better at it than I. Well, you have more desire to find out than I do.
I just always hold out hope, Carl, that out there somewhere in the great beyond, there is a hidden stash of powder.
I know it's not there.
We had a good few days last winter in the Sawtooths with some friends of mine.
Some big days. For me, medium for you maybe, but those are big days.
Those were big, hard days, especially when you start stacking them up. I can remember pulling off a boot at the end of, I don't know, the second or third day and thinking, I know I have a blister here. And as I'm pulling the boot off, I can see it and feel it just like tearing the crap out of my foot. That's one of your favorite things to make fun of me for.
Yeah.
The sock show.
Yeah.
To tell everybody what the sock show is.
Sock show is right about lunchtime on a big ski day. Josh likes to stop at a sunny spot if it's cold or a shady spot if it's warm and start taking his boots off to show everybody his socks.
It's not that I like to take them.
Nobody likes taking their boots off, but he has feet problems. I feel bad about making fun of you, but I always do make fun of you. I've seen your socks in the middle of a ski a lot more than anybody else's.
Too many times.
Yeah.
I'm getting better. Like, since I moved to Idaho, the sock shows have been fewer in number, and now to the point where I'd like only tear the feet off at the end of the day. Anyway, it's like getting a Band-Aid off.
Yeah, except it's your skin.
Yeah.
I think it's the opposite of that.
We did ski with a friend of mine who is from Maine, like Adam, and skis like Adam. In fact, grew up skiing with Adam. Mm-hmm. And we'll put a clip.
They're all the same, those guys.
They sure are. Like they grew up skiing on breakable crust, and so when they find
that was
snow,
like a good day.
When they find snow that's even remotely soft,
it's insane.
Yeah, they're things those guys
invincible.
Can do. Yeah. Well,
they ski like I would if I couldn't get hurt. Like if it was impossible to get hurt, and I was very good at skiing, neither of which are true. They ski like that all the time. It's like, oh man, that looks so fun. I'm gonna go over here where I'll have privacy and I can ski down this really lame stuff by myself. That was impressive.
That was impressive. I think I find, let's talk about good days on bikes and good days on skis, because I had one of those days on bikes that you get like once a year, a few days ago, where everything is just, it's perfect. Like you're descending at sunset, the air temperature is perfect. This summer, no smoke in the air this time, right? It had rained the night before or earlier that day, and the trails were like, that. And there were tacos on the horizon, man. So, like, compare that day for you to, like, the best day on backcountry skis.
It's so much easier to, like, find the perfect day on skis, I think. It's just so much more conditions dependent, realistically. For me, like, untracked snow, like, on the right steepness of terrain, like, it's always, it's awesome. Yeah. It's just, and you, in addition, you like do all this whole dog and pony show of like zigzagging up the hill and getting all sweaty and doing all this work and getting up early. So you have like this desire for it to be good. And then you drop in, you're like, oh my God, it's all worth it. This is so amazing. 20 seconds of this is worth 20 hours of that slogging stuff. And it really is.
It totally is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's ecstasy.
Yeah, and euphoria, and you can see how people die doing it.
Yes.
Because it's so outrageous.
Yes. Bikes, I think, I have those days like you're talking about. Like everybody that rides bikes has those days. But like it's not as refined into like this 20 seconds, Mm-hmm. Like you have just this experience where you had just hit all these points of like the light and the dirt and your sensations and like the timing and what you're going to do afterwards. Everything. It's a perfect day. And skiing, it's just like, I had this sensation that I was, weightless while I moved through the woods. And for 12 seconds, it was the best feeling I've ever had,
So good.
And the rest of my day was terrible. And I crashed my car, but God, I want more of that. Like, it's a different thing. And I think on the whole, like for me, riding bikes is probably better in a lot of ways, just because it's so much easier and more convenient, and it's not conditions dependent. So you can have a great day any day of the week in the summer. Yeah. And skiing, you're just like looking at your phone like, oh, maybe in 10 days it's not going to suck and we can go up in there and try to get what we want again. You're
such a pessimist.
No, I'm a realist, man. Like that's what it is. Yeah, because I don't ski on breakable crust for the fun of it. I ski on breakable crust when I get suckered into doing that. So yeah, I mean, biking it's you can, if it's hot, you can ride your road bike and stay cool. If it's cold, you can ride your mountain bike and stay warm. And there's a lot of different ways, and you can do that with skis to some degree. But like when it's raining on the snow,
yeah, that sucks. I draw the line at rain. Yeah. Rain is, that's it.
Groomers in the rain can be good. I'm told.
If it's
I don't think
if
it's true either.
coming out of the air and it's not frozen, I'm
I've
out.
skied in a drizzle and had a great time in the right snow conditions, the right wax.
You can have that. Hey, we did Mount Jefferson 2 or 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. I have a few pictures from that we can drop in here. That might have been your first big volcano. I don't remember. I know you were
first and last. I've never done.
You were a little
like
reluctant. You were like, I don't know about objective skiing. Might not be my thing.
Yeah, because of the skiing part.
And there were some.
The skiing is the end that I'm after. It's not the means to an end.
Okay.
So
okay.
Yeah, I mean that was an amazing experience and it was really neat. But like that didn't like set the hook. Like, oh, I'm gonna go ski a bunch of volcanoes in the spring.
Yeah.
From here on out. And not that I'm not gonna do any, but like it's just not. It's scary. That's the thing. I feel like it's a little risky for the reward. It's as much
skiing in general or objective skiing?
The objective skiing thing.
Okay.
Being the level of skier that I'm at and where we're at and just like the whole group mindset of like, oh, let's try to do this thing. And like, if the snow sucks, am I going to be the guy that's like, hey, I don't really want to ski down all this stuff?
Probably.
But I don't really want to sit here for 5 hours while you guys finish this thing either.
Yeah.
That part concerns me a little bit.
That balance is hard in skiing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not something you encounter in other, where else do you have that?
Nowhere else that I've ever experienced. And I think that dynamic is why I like to ski in small groups.
Yeah.
Because it reduces the odds that you're going to have that problem. It takes the pressure off if you have a really close ski partner that you trust. And it just seems like you're less likely to have a big accident, right?
Yeah,
with fewer people. It's the same reason totally. I don't want to ride in a group of 10 mountain bikers because you're going to spend a quarter of your day fixing flats.
And why you always want to ride by yourself on gravel.
Okay, they're both selfish sports.
There is a point, I don't know if we've talked about that point. We're in crampons and ice axes, both new to me. I've never used either of these. There was no like self-arresting 101 type of program,
right?
Which maybe I should have requested. And we got to the point where we're way up on that big face. It's a sheet of snow that's maybe 3,000 feet tall.
Right.
We're like towards the top of it.
You don't want to start the slide.
And and it's solid ice, and it's only got periodic rocks sticking out of it, and you're gonna like maybe you'll just slide 3,000 feet without hitting any rocks. That'd be like the best option. And maybe you're going to collect a lot of rocks and be not stoked. And I remember Eamon, he slipped.
Yeah.
And just instantly put his axe in and stopped. And just got back up and started moving again. And I was like, oh my God. If I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
And this guy's obviously been in crampon. He's like better with the crampon part than I am. And like I've borrowed all this crap and I'm just like holding on this ice axe like, well, don't slip. And it was like, I don't like this.
Sure.
This is too much.
Okay.
And that was like a moment where I was like, you know what? Like, this is not my bag. The skiing, it was an awesome crew. The day was amazing. The skiing was great.
It was by the time we actually got to the skiing.
Yeah, we did it right.
We did it right. Yeah.
Timed it perfectly, and it was awesome skiing. And it was a
skied right
banner
down
day.
a giant avalanche gully until they ran out of snow.
Yeah.
And then back walking into the rainforest, which was an experience I'd never had until I skied an Oregon volcano.
Yeah.
Pretty neat.
Yeah, I mean, it was stellar. And every time I drive past that mountain, I'm like, yeah, I've stood right up there, which is pretty neat. But, yeah, I don't know. I do too much other stuff. I don't want to buy crampons. They tear up your bag. All that stuff. I don't know. I'll probably go again with you guys sometime on something. But
okay. Start me out with some of the interesting things that are in common between driving cars and riding bikes. You raced rally cars for 10 years, 7 years?
Yeah, 10 years, something like that.
And
my last race being with you.
Was that the last time you did it?
I think it was. Yeah. I think that was the last rally race I did.
That was in 2014, if I remember right. Mount Hood.
10 years ago already.
It was 10 years ago.
That's crazy.
So we were talking earlier about how there are a lot of overlapping skills,
Yeah.
we think, between that. And I've had this conversation with other people, and I feel pretty strongly that you use the same part of your brain when you're riding a bike and you're reading terrain and you're processing what's coming at you as you do when you're driving a rally car. And not just rally cars, but I think rally cars in particular, because there's a lot of emphasis placed in rally cars on where the grip is on the road and what kind of the nature of the grip. And
Yeah.
that's very true on mountain bikes too. So talk a little bit about what you think those skill sets are and why they're in common, and fill me in.
I think, all these things that I like to do, that we like to do, I think it kind of boils down to turning, really. Apex is finding the apex and finding the grip and finding the right entry speed and reading terrain. And there's a ton of crossover in all of these things, from skiing and reading the snow to rally racing to even riding your road bicycle down a canyon road. There's a lot of crossover there. If you're good at one, doesn't make you good at the other. I don't know about that, but that's the thing that I can find in the things that I really like, that I take the most pleasure from. It seems to be reading terrain and looking for apexes and just turning, man. If you run fast enough, turning gets fun. So it's all about turning and just changing direction and doing it efficiently and safely, but also very quickly. And I've kind of spent my whole life trying to do that, I guess.
You went to college on a running scholarship?
I did, yeah. I was racing mountain bikes before I was a runner, and that made me a pretty good runner because I'd already, I was racing bicycles when I was 9, so I had a body of work when I was 18 that was quite deep compared to most people. I don't think that I'm a terribly gifted runner, but I had some of the tools built up from just, being an athlete and being in the outdoors and playing, that it helped me go to college, go to university that I could not afford. So pretty lucky there.
I will say for sure that I've never run fast enough to get the same thrill turning that I do on a bike, a mountain bike, or in a rally car.
Well, maybe you're on the wrong terrain. Parkour.
Maybe I'm the wrong kind of runner.
Yeah, I think we both are at this point.
Well, let's go back to the very first time we did anything together. I remember becoming friends with you on Facebook.
Okay.
Which was silly.
Is that how it started?
I believe it was. And that's
Okay.
a silly way to become friends for a middle-aged man. Maybe I wasn't quite middle-aged.
That might
then.
be a unique thing. I don't know if I have other good friends from Facebook.
But we didn't know each other. We traded phone numbers because I think we could see that we had enough in common that there was maybe something to be had there. And we made this plan to go on a motorcycle ride. And you were in town. This is when I lived in Southern California. You were in town. Must have been bike related, but you had a motorcycle.
Yeah.
You had Adam's R6.
Yeah.
And we went out to the desert and ran.
Borrego Springs? Is that what it
Borrego
was?
Springs,
Yeah.
Montezuma grade.
Yeah.
The best motorcycle road on earth.
It was very, very good.
Yeah.
There's nobody out there but us, it felt like.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
That was really cool.
And you were on a Super Duke?
I think I was on a Super Duke
Which
then.
at the time I thought was the coolest motorcycle in the world.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd want one anymore, but at the time I thought it was really badass.
I bought it because it was cool looking. I don't
Yes.
think it was the best riding bike.
No.
But it was cool looking.
Yes.
I had an R6 before or after. I can't remember. That was also fantastic. Anyway, that was sort of what began our friendship. And then, of course, we rode bikes together a lot. And I did so with a lot of intimidation early on because I thought, this guy's a professional rider. At that point, you were like in the heart of your career, and I've always been an amateur, so it was hard for me to imagine that going well. But it always went well. We always seemed to have a good time together on bikes, and
I think that's a common thing, right? Like amateurs think that pros are always riding at some pro pace, but like show me a 50-year-old amateur guy and he's probably riding too fast on his easy days and the pro guy isn't.
yeah.
So there's, it can go both ways, but it's a common misconception, I think, that the fast guys are always riding fast.
Sure. Well, nonetheless, you slowed down enough that
I didn't have to slow down much.
this fantastic friendship sprang forth.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, well, let's move back to rally cars for just a minute. I want to talk about that Mount Hood rally because I remember you invited me to navigate and I was highly honored. But I think you had higher expectations than I could deliver on at the time. And I hadn't really navigated. I had navigated a pretty high level 10 or 15 years earlier, but I hadn't really done much since then from that seat. And I remember thinking, oh, shit, this guy's pretty fast. Like, I don't know if I can do this at the level he's operating. Because you and Adam at that point had established a pretty good reputation in the Pacific Northwest for being fast guys.
Sure. We were kind of in Oregon, maybe the guys. Yeah, in the Pacific Northwest, we were maybe the guys to beat sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, at that time, I guess.
In cars and on bikes.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Anyway, I can remember being in the car the first time, and I think maybe as we're pulling up to the first stage, you were like, how long has it been since you've done this? And I think I had to admit it had been like 10 or 12 years or something. And then we got maybe 6 turns in, and I immediately got lost.
Yeah. It was tarmac. I remember that stage was tarmac, wasn't it?
It had part tarmac,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, it definitely had some tarmac in
timing's
it.
off
I
on
don't
that
remember
stuff.
wasn't it just one stage out and back?
Yeah, twice or 3. It was a dumb year at Hood that year.
Yeah.
It was one stage 4 times in 2 different directions or something.
Wasn't great.
Yeah.
But the road was good. It was just a weird logistics for the rally. Anyway, I got lost in the notes, and it was just kind of a disaster, and I was pretty embarrassed. And I think you managed to, you obviously kept us on the road, but I think we finished like second or third that day in a reasonable field, and a good regional field.
Well, I mean, you did half the driving, didn't you?
I think you let me drive
the last
2.
Yeah, the last pass of both stages.
Yeah, so it was 3 times out and back.
Is that what it was?
I think I either drove the very last stage or the whole last leg.
I knew that we weren't going to like bridge to the leaders.
No.
And I'd never co-driven or navigated before, and I was like, both of us need to know the road so much. That'll be interesting. Like, I mean, you have more driving credentials than I do, and it was interesting. I don't know. For whatever reason, it seemed like the right thing to do. And I'm glad I did it, because it was really neat to sit in the passenger seat and try to keep up with all that.
I think you were better at navigating than I was.
We'd been down the road 8 times already, man.
Yeah,
like I could have done it with the no papers.
Yeah,
right.
probably.
Like you could have done it. Like it was all rote memorization at that point. Like, yeah, watch out for the rock that we pulled out on the last pass through here. Like it wasn't that hard.
That was a good day.
It was a good day. Yeah, it was the last rally day. I think it was the last time I raced that car or raced rally cars.
Sure.
Which was. It's just kind of sad because rally racing was so cool and so important to me. Like I just thought it was the coolest thing ever, and it was for a while. But no part of me thinks, oh man, I need to get back in there. There's just so much that you have to give to take such big risks. To take such big risks and then to do what to fight to go as fast as you did last time, or I don't know. It seemed like I'm pretty happy to not be a rally car owner.
Me too. I'm glad I did it though.
Yeah. If I hadn't done it, I would still just desperately want to race rally cars. Absolutely desperately.
And would be doing everything in your power to do it.
And I'd be older and I'd learn slower and I'd spend even more money
Yeah,
and I would
probably.
have even less time, and it'd be super frustrating to do it. At a lot of the guys, I think that was some of the advantage that I had. Adam and I were coming from being World Cup mountain bike racer guys,
Right.
and we're racing together, and like we're young and we know how to pace ourselves, and a lot of these guys are like getting into the sport in their late 40s and stuff, and it's like
It's when you can afford it.
right, that's when you can afford it, but it's like how do you find the energy to do that when you're a sedentary person that runs a garage or whatever, a concrete company or whatever that brings you that fortune that it takes to race cars. So we'd have not very good equipment, but we had a tool set that most guys just couldn't match, which was
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah, it was cool. I can remember before I knew you watching the results and just being stunned by how fast you guys were going with, I mean, even before the car was an open class all-wheel drive car,
Yeah,
it was a
it was a turd.
It was a turd. It was a two-wheel drive turd
Yeah.
that you managed to make go real fast and upside down, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was pretty fast by the time we turned it upside down. Not my fault. Always the other guy's fault. But yeah, I mean, like even when we made the car into the same car, we put a STI drivetrain in it and made it a go fast car. And like even then, we were doing these races, and we'd be racing against guys with like pretty well built cars, and like guys would come and like push on the corner of our car and see the suspension move and be like, oh, whoa, because I was getting my strut assemblies from a junkyard, complete WRX takeoffs for $50. They had unknown miles.
Just go destroy them.
They wouldn't destroy. I think when I rolled the car, I'd ruined one. I think I might have popped one other strut.
Huh.
Like we were using like stock parts. These other guys are spending a lot of money on suspension, and we're just like, we can't really afford that.
Yeah.
When it's really slippery, ours is better maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, the less grip, the less
Yeah,
stiffness you need.
if it was really fast and really rough, like we were at a disadvantage, but hey, choose your disadvantage, Like,
Sure.
it was it was pretty funny. Like the pro guys or the top guys were like, these guys are crazy. Which is, I don't know, it's fun coming from a different space and being like in that position.
I feel like that sport runs purely on passion.
Yes.
For 98% of people, it is just driven by that desire to get behind the wheel and have that sort of sense of invincibility that you're finally in there. You've got the helmet, the Hans device, the cage,
Yeah. The closed road,
the seat,
monitors,
the fire suit.
Yes.
Like all the
notes,
stuff.
Everything has been done.
Yeah.
All the work has been done, and you've put your best foot forward, and now you're just driving as fast as you can, trying not to go off the road.
Yeah.
That's special.
It
You don't
is.
get to do that. I mean, circuit racing on a road course or whatever, great. Passing and whatnot, but like that's just kind of repetitive in a way that rally is just wild. And with the weather and just changing surfaces,
Yeah.
every corner was a surprise.
Yeah. Stage rallying is even unlike, I mean, the antics of rallycross are amazing and the cars are incredible. But even talking to some of those guys, they all hold a special place in their heart for being in the forest.
Yep.
And doing the stage rally thing. And yeah.
I mean, Formula One drivers
Yeah.
want to go race
Right.
rallies. They do,
Periodically
they quit
they do.
and they quit racing F1 because I don't want to do it. And Raikkonen or whatever goes and races WRC. Mm-hmm. A bunch of those guys end up doing that, and even more of them end up riding bikes.
Yeah.
There's so much crossover from F1 and WRC too. Like so many of those guys ride bikes. Some of them are pretty good. Botas is a pretty damn strong rider.
Is he?
At this point, he's probably climbing better than I am. I'd really love to descend with Valtteri
Yeah.
on a gravel bike.
That'd be
He's
cool.
into like 100-mile gravel races, does a lot of them.
Huh.
I've talked to him a little bit at a couple races, but I've never ridden with him. Like it'd be fascinating to see like, what he's doing on the bike.
Sure. I think Mark Webber too. He's now out of it, but he did Leadville. I don't know.
Oh, did he?
6 or 8, 10 years ago,
Okay,
7
yeah.
years ago,
Yep.
and had a very respectable time. So, yeah, That's more that crossover
Right.
we were talking about, right?
Right.
It's definitely a thing. And it's not just the ability to read terrain and read roads and have that skill set in common. It's also the need to have fitness at the highest level
Right.
when you're a professional driver,
Yeah.
right? And so periodically, Sebastian Loeb will break a collarbone, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But, he's 50 now, and he won the Monty last
Right.
year or the year
Sure.
before.
Yeah.
So
he breaks a collarbone on a bicycle.
he's had some injuries,
Okay.
in the last 7 years.
Solberg definitely broke some bones on bicycles.
Which one?
Petter,
The old
the
one?
OG.
The old man?
Yeah, the young guy. He hasn't broken anything yet. He's like 22 probably now, but there's a ton of crossover from motorsports into mountain bikes. There's a lot less from mountain bikes because of the price problem. The cost of motor racing, you don't just dip your feet into that, lightly.
Right.
But it begs the question kind of what's better, right?
I think motorsports are better if you're at the highest level. You don't have to do it yourself, and then you can go ride your bike.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think doing anything at the highest level is becomes less good.
Why is that?
You have everything at your disposal, but the pressure is higher. You're almost always you have all these experiences, so it's not new to you. I don't know. If you and I could go fly a fighter jet right now, it'd be awesome. But the guys that fly fighter jets, yeah, they like it, but they've put in hundreds or thousands of hours, and it's business,
Yeah.
And if you're the best at something, you need to be the best this weekend too. And finding out how fast you are isn't what that's about. It's about delivering, and delivering's not as fun as finding out how fast you are.
Huh. Great perspective. I've never thought about that because I've never had the opportunity to race against the best at anything.
Yeah.
Right? Not many do.
Yeah.
And so that's an interesting thing to hear someone who has had that opportunity say.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a minute, but there was times where it's okay, this is a big race and I can win it and I need to win it. And I've got a mortgage,
Sure.
And I'm not going to stop getting paid next year if I don't win this year, but do that 2 or 3 years, I might be delivering pizza again. so thinking about that versus I wonder if we could scare these pro guys, just two, madcap amateurs. That's a fun place to be in. And that's why amateur bike racing is, there's so many people that are into it, right? It's attractive to see where you stack up, and the side benefit is you get, muscly legs and you can eat whatever you want.
Last topic. Let's talk about one of the themes of this channel is doing these things that we've been talking about at the highest level that you're capable of, and finding balance in the rest of your life. So not having too much on the side of the athletic, fitness endeavor, adventure endeavor, because you have people in your life that you owe yourself to, right? And figuring out how to do that well is really hard. And you don't have kids, but you have always done that in a way that I feel is kind of a role model for me in certain ways. You've been able to operate athletically at the highest level. You rode in 7 mountain bike world championships and still make the rest of your life be really fun. And I remember when I met you initially, the first couple years, I'm wound way too tight, as you know. Spending time with you, I would find myself after the first day was are we ever going to do this thing? We're going to wait till 6 o'clock to get on the bikes? What the hell? I got things to do, Carl.
Right.
And then after a few of those visits, I was like, you know what? It was fine. We got all the cycling in that I needed to do. I'm exhausted because every trip I'd go home wrecked. And I'd also learn, I learned from those experiences that, maybe you can relax it a little bit and still accomplish the things you want to accomplish, not just athletically, but also in other areas of your life. So tell me a little bit about your life philosophy in that regard.
My life philosophy. I think that balance is important. Like, if you're so wrapped up in one thing that you can't enjoy other things, then when that one thing falls apart, or you struggle, or you have, the whole 2 steps forward, 1 step back thing, whether it's injury or just a bad year or whatever, you just can't, you can't keep moving forward, in the way that you can if you diversify a little bit. I think being diversified makes some sense, and just finding a multitude of things that kind of make you happy. And if they dovetail into each other, like all of them involve reading terrain and turning, then you can balance all those things fairly easily, and just shine the light brighter on some of them at times. But know that there's other things. Knowing that there's other things you enjoy can take a lot of the pressure off of enjoying the one thing that you enjoy most, I think. And making that your sole focus. Sure, long term that's necessary. Sometimes you just have to be focused to be good at stuff, and you have to make sacrifices and keep your eyes on the prize. But that doesn't work for everybody in the same way, and it can be counterproductive. And for Adam Craig, my former teammate, and we developed this philosophy together, I guess, or maybe we had it separately, and that's why we became such good friends and training companions and racing buddies. And it's, both of us have so many dumb sport things that we like to do, and we're pretty okay at a lot of them, and it's paid off for both of us. And just having, the jobs that we do, and post racing kind of industry stuff that we're both involved in, is all down to a soft focus, I think, is kind of the way we looked at things. That said, to be fair, both of us were making a living off of racing bikes, so we didn't have to work a job that made us, we had the luxury of always getting as much sleep as we wanted.
Sure.
And not having to show up to work at 8 on Monday morning after a weekend or whatever. We were able to parlay some amount of skill and focus and talent into being able to leverage that into doing whatever we wanted. And we didn't have kids, and we didn't have wives, and we didn't have real jobs. We had jobs that we took very serious, but we didn't have to be serious about our jobs in a way that made it, a bummer. So it's a weird deal. It's something to aspire to, but also it's something that's a gift that not everybody has. The people that blow my mind are the people that balance a family and a real job, where they're working 40 or 50 hours a week. That's, they own a business, or they have a professional job, and they also are strong on a bike, even if it's not at a professional level. To be strong at all, I'm just how do you do that? When do you sleep? It's crazy to me that people can do all that. And I've always admired that, and I've always been afraid of what would happen to me if I had all of those things taken away from my ability to just do what I want and be good at it. Because if I was, I don't think that I could do all the balancing of those things that in the way that some other people do.
Well, you've done a remarkable job of being a good athlete and being a good friend. Well, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, that's easy.
All right. I think on that note, that's a good place to wrap it up.
All right.
Thanks
Great.
so much.
Yeah, fun talking to you. We'll do it again sometime.
I hope so.
Yeah.
All right. Hi there. I'm really grateful that you're here. I'm grateful that you've given me so much of your time. I think that our time is our most valuable asset, and it means an awful lot to have shared this much of it with you and with Carl. This is a call to subscribe. We've been doing this for about a month, and it definitely feels like yelling into the ether some days. So if you'd hit that button, I'd really appreciate it.